All right. Here we are once again live on all the channels. LinkedIn, welcome. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, welcome. My name is Lori Swanson. I am the CEO of Inspire Tech, a career coaching company, and the founder of Career Alchemy Academy, where we gather every week to become alchemists in our careers, in our lives. So if this is your first time watching, welcome. Every week I come on, generally on Wednesdays, 1 o'clock Central Time. I'm actually getting ready to travel to go and speak at the Women in Design conference in Denver. So about career design. Get that? Career design. So I've moved the time to this morning, Tuesday morning, here in Chicago at 10 a.m. ish. And every week I come to you with some sort of a thought that I'm having, something I'm considering, something I've written about in my blogs. And you can find my blogs out on our website. There's the QR code over my shoulder that will take you to the website. I think to the career coaching page is what I have today. I have different QR codes. I mix them up. But if you go from there to the homepage and under resources, you can sign up for Inspirations in Your Inbox, our career blog, and find this information. Usually I talk a little bit more on LinkedIn. I expand on it, but follow it pretty closely. And I've got my notes to help me. What else can I say? I just really glad you're here. If you're watching live, if you're watching this on the recording, thank you. Please email me or DM me on LinkedIn if you have any questions or things that are confusing you about the market, about your career. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I have, this is not my first rodeo. I have lots of years within recruitment and coaching and working with women inside of technology as they, kind of align their careers with the cadence of the life they're in that moment, and making sure to do that so that we don't have a little bit about what I'm going to talk about today, which is that doing nothing is not the same as being nothing. And that'll make sense in a second. So this whole, thought came to me when my husband and I went down to see down into downtown Chicago, Chicago Theater, beautiful theater, to see Jim Gaffigan, comedian, stand-up comedian, if you haven't heard of him. And he said at one point, he said, his kind of a unique tone to his voice, I struggle with doing nothing. Should I sit down and do nothing, or should I lie down and do nothing? And I'm like, oh, that, thought struck me. Like I could feel that like right here, because here's the thing. Right now, work is very busy. And this is what I've been working towards, right? Over these, having my recruiting business and then slowly, well, actually not slowly, like pretty abruptly deciding to close that down so that I could fully focus on my passion and what I believe I'm meant to be doing in the world, which is supporting women as they navigate their careers and aligning them again with their true nature, their sort of authentic selves, and tapping into the intuitive inner wisdom, expanded consciousness that's available to all of us when we believe and when we tune in, listen, and then take action on that guidance. So we work on both kind of that crossroads of practical, tactical, strategic career and job search stuff, and the magical, spirit-centered, expanded consciousness side of things. So blending that all together. And so I've been building this after abruptly shutting down my recruiting firm because trying to do, two things was becoming untenable. It was I was just not sleeping and it was difficult. And so even though I hadn't financially reached the goal I wanted in order to logically shut down my recruiting firm, I just knew that I had to make a choice and there was really no choice to be made. I wanted to coach. So shut down recruiting and then have been working to build my visibility, which is something I talk to women about in their careers, like going out there, letting people know what you're up to, what you need, connecting with people, helping, being of service to other people, like taking time to do that, is a lot. It takes time, it takes energy. And I'd been working and intentionally building up my visibility and connecting with people and being of service and having tons of fun doing it. And the rewards, I'm reaping the rewards of that effort, excuse me, of that effort. Because, I have a very full calendar now with coaching clients. I have launched my membership or program, Career Alchemy Academy, which is a 6-month program that people can join, and which has been a lifelong dream of mine to have a community for women to gather virtually. I didn't know it was going to be virtually until it was. I guess that was my dream, right? Because that's what happened. I'm doing more speaking. I've also, am volunteering and continue to volunteer and support the community of women in tech. And so I've got a very, very full calendar from these seeds that I had been planting. They are bearing this fruit, right? And it's a beautiful thing. And I feel like it's a lot. What's interesting is before this sort of momentum season, when I was planting the seeds, I'd have long stretches sometimes of quiet, more calm stretches as I was building because I had less, less coaching clients and I hadn't launched Career Alchemy Academy yet. So I didn't have those times scheduled out on my calendar and I wasn't being invited to speak yet as often, right? And so inside corporations as well as on stages, that just wasn't happening and the prep that takes, right? And so I had more space in my calendar. I had more room in my days. And instead of really appreciating that, I felt guilty. And I know you can probably relate to this, guilty that I had the time, guilty that I should be doing more. I'm building this business, right? I should be knocking on more doors. So I was guilty that I wasn't filling up every open hour with something that looked like productivity. Because I'm building a business, right? That's what I should be doing. And as I was writing out this blog and thinking about that, I'm like, that word should is like the biggest weapon of productivity culture. It's the biggest weapon productivity culture has. This sort of thought that you should be doing something different, that you should be doing something more. And so it is, and I see it with my coaching clients all the time. Like women on a job search that feel guilty that they're not applying to 27 more jobs at 10 at night, or that they aren't spending more time optimizing their LinkedIn profiles, at midnight, or that they are inside of their corporate America and they're in what I call like a slower project season, in between performance reviews, right? In between travel, and they feel unsettled because the fire drill isn't happening. And one client recently told me, and this kind of between Jim Gaffigan's comment about the struggle between sitting down and doing nothing and lying down and doing nothing, where I thought to myself, that's the struggle I want to be having. But it was between that and what my client had said. So my client and I were in a coaching call and she said, I've developed a bad habit. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, I'm spending, take my lunch break, but now I find myself doing something that I don't normally do. Like I'm watching more TV series, on her phone, like Netflix series and things like that, and not even stopping when technically the lunch break is over, right? And then the work that she's doing, she's now putting in the evenings instead of during the day. And she said, I'm just sort of confused by why I'm doing it that way. Why don't I get my work done? And, it's not like she has, it's streaming, right? It's available all the time. You're not missing. Like I remember when I went to the University of Texas, and in the Union, there was a theater, and at noon Central Time, every day, all my children would come on, right? But if you missed it, you missed it. And so I literally I loved all my children. I put my schedule around that so I could get there, grab my lunch, sit in the theater, eat my lunch, and watch all my kids. But now you don't have to plan like that, right? Because you can watch Traders, at any point. You can watch it at noon, you can watch it at 3, you can watch it at midnight, you can watch it at any time. And so she's like, I'm just confused when I know I could work in my normal working hours. And then at night, I could be just relaxing and watching, the shows, right? And so I am watching Traders right now. I'm not a real, like, what do you call that, reality TV person. I don't necessarily like the drama and the backbiting and things like that. But I thought, yeah, everyone been talking about it, and of course that's what happens, right? You just kind of get hooked in. You're like, okay, I gotta see who's gonna win this game. I've got to see, oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm down that rabbit hole. But to what we're talking about, my client was confused by it, and I'm like, I see this pattern constantly. When the external structure disappears, the deadline, the project urgency, the meeting schedules, or, let's call it what it is, overload, the travel, we have a hard time relaxing, and that panics us. And so productivity culture has trained us to associate our worth with visible output, right? And so if no one's watching the clock, or there's no, again, none of these meetings to keep us on track, we're not the full calendar, we don't have the pressure self-imposed or, team imposed, leader imposed, client imposed pressure, like breathing down our necks, then we naturally want to manufacture that pressure in some way. And so she was delaying the work so that when the evening came, she was like, she put this, like her bedtime as the deadline, so that she could get that adrenaline and of that comes with being under pressure, which we know is not healthy to consistently be in running at that pace. And that's why we have these cycles, right? And so it wasn't that, that she was feeling guilty. She was shooting on herself. She was feeling lazy, not valuable to the project or the company. And actually felt like because she had more time to do nothing, that it was like she was nothing in a way. So we talked about how uncomfortable it felt for her to be working differently right now. And, that putting her feet up at lunchtime for a little bit longer, an hour and a half instead of her typical 45 minutes, because the project hadn't kicked off yet and she had that ability to do that. That the work that she did have could be done in less days. So instead of filling up that time with, artificial deadlines, and that she, didn't make her less valuable, right? That she, that because she could do things in less time, or that she had less work, didn't mean she was less valuable to the company. In fact, I believe, that, like I said, that this ebb and flow that comes, if you look in nature, right? We have this, and right now, where are we? We're at least here in the northern hemisphere, we're at the tail end of winter, that quieter time, that hibernation period, right? So instead of trying to push harder, we do something counterintuitive. Uh, let's put it this way. When I was, talking to my client, I said, we're in this sort of winter of your career, and it happens in the middle of summer too, when we're talking about career cycles, but we're in this winter time of the career where we're meant to slow down. We're meant to hibernate a little bit. We're meant to sit in front of the fire and just sip our cocoa and read a book, you know? And so I said, what if we, instead of trying to push harder right now during this natural ebb, if we did something counterintuitive and created structure that included downtime, so that you could feel like it's counterintuitive because you're putting in the downtime, but you're doing it in your calendar. So therefore it has more value or something. So putting in walking, putting in, just watching, listening to a podcast. Now it could be related to work, putting in, a Coursera course or something like that, putting in intentional white space so that not as a reward. And that I mention that because I've spent a long time, and I do believe I learned this from my family, working like nobody's business Monday through Friday, and then 4 o'clock on Friday, it was like, finally, let's live it up. Let's party. Let's have fun. Instead of like creating pockets of fun and pockets of downtime and pockets of do nothing all week, I just was buckling down and, armoring up and doing all those things to get through the week so that then I could justify, as a reward of good behavior, as a reward of productivity, I could justify doing nothing or doing something completely not related to work, which is crazy. It's just, and I feel for my younger self. I wish I could say to her, relax, have more fun, put a longer lunch in there, And so, and maybe some of you do that. I think that my kids who are in their mid-20s, right? I think they do it better than I did. But I do believe we have way more room to grow around this idea of recognizing a slower season in our careers and then adapting to it, so without guilt, without shooting on ourselves. So we created this structure that included no structure. And I said, how does that feel? And she's like, I feel activated again. Because what was happening was she was feeling more sluggish because she hadn't deliberately recognized the winter season. She hadn't created what the career was yearning for, probably what her own body and nature was yearning for, this downtime. Because she hadn't created that, she was feeling the guilt was adding pressure. She wasn't sleeping well. Every time she would take lunch and watch a Netflix, whatever she was watching, I don't know, maybe it was Traders, whatever she was watching, there was always this sort of undercurrent of, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be more productive right now. I should be finding work. I should be, and so it never felt like, fully engaged with any part of her day. And so now we created this sort of different kind of fire inside of her, where she was feeling more activated, but not because she was cramming more in, right? But because she stopped fighting the season. And I really want to, it's something I'm learning again. I remember, back in my big personal and spiritual growth phase for over a decade, I was deep into into it, and happiest times of my life. And I'm seeing as as I've shut down my recruiting firm, and I am, even though I'm busy right now, but I'm yearning for a little bit more space to pursue more spiritual um, pathways again. And I'm super excited about that, which is actually motivating me to say no to more things so I can create more white space, so I can dream and go down the rabbit holes of near-death experiences and create a spiritual pilgrimage, um, travel to where miracles have occurred and bring people with me. Like these things, these dreams, I want to create more space to give them the time they need. And so I'm learning again that I used to go on these kind of seasonal retreats through this personal growth group that I was involved in. And we would talk about each of the seasons and what the importance of spring and summer and fall and winter. And I had kind of forgotten about all of that, that there's a time for planting and that there's a time for um, kind of watering, and there's a time for harvesting, and there's a time for hibernating, for quiet, and that the nature kind of follows its own 3-month cycle or approximately for those things. And again, depending on where you live, but certainly in Chicago, we have distinctly 4 seasons. But our inner nature also has these seasons, and it's trying all the time to match the valuable work we're doing in the world, the service that we're bringing into the world, to match that with the natural cycles that the body is yearning for. So if we rush to fill in every quiet moment, we never actually get to experience the season that we're in. And when life gets loud again, when we enter harvest or planting, um, we we're depleted. We just aren't fully ready for that. So doing nothing is not the same as being nothing. Working differently is not the same as not working valuably, right? So if you're in a slower season in your job search or in your leadership role, like less travel. That's one I see a lot with my leaders, like they're like, wow, I don't travel again for 6 weeks. What? What do I do with that? Or maybe in your business, consider an alternative approach. Instead of finding ways to fill the empty space with more work so that you can not feel guilty, that you can feel productive, find more ways to use the space in a way that prepares you for what's next, by really leaning into and embracing the quiet and the lull, right? And maybe it's just as simple as starting to decide, just making one choice. Should I sit down and do nothing? Or should I lie down and do nothing? That's the choice. That's the question. And so let's just decide between those two things, and, DM me while you're doing it, not because you should, but just because you're acknowledging, look at me, recognizing this season that I'm in right now and using it to do nothing. So that's my blog for today. That's my conversation here on LinkedIn. And I'd love to hear what nothing you're doing. And also your, any comments or questions or thoughts you have, please share this with people. I don't even know. Can you share this on LinkedIn? I don't know. Tell people, and imagine me, who is, as I said, flying to Denver to speak. I speak Thursday afternoon, but I've already checked in with the hotel about spa services, so I can sit there and do nothing while someone else is like doing this to my shoulders. So yes, doing nothing, I'm all for it. Peace, love, and inspiration to all of you. May your careers reflect the cadence of the season you're in. And if that means doing nothing, just know that that doesn't mean you are nothing. You are valuable, you are worthy, and you're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing when you're putting your feet up and taking a little mini vacation. Talk to y'all soon. Thank you.